Hello and welcome back to the Health and Harmony Girls podcast. Today we are starting with our guest series. We still haven't decided what we're going to call it, but basically we are interviewing, more like chatting with, some really powerful and empowering women that we know in our space, whether it's in physical life or on the online space. And today we have an incredible guest, Altashana. She is the owner and founder of Menstrual Holistics. We're just going to go with the flow and see where the conversation takes us. But she is very, very wise when it comes to womb wisdom, moon wisdom, and all of those beautiful things that come with that. So, sorry, I got a frog in my throat. Introduce yourself, let everyone that's listening know who you are, what you do, whatever comes to the mind, you speak about it.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you for inviting me and having me on today. I am super excited for this. I love chatting. So this is perfect for today. So thank you so much for inviting me. Yes, as Roxy said, I am the founder of Moon School. I started Moon School around May in this year of 2021. So Moon School is quite young, but it is rooted in a lot of years of experience and studying and, just working with the ancient wisdom that is within our womb, and that is reflected by the moon, I should say, as well, because we work very closely with the moon cycles in Moon School, and the connection between the moon cycles and the cycles of the womb, and how we go through all of these cycles from the day that we are born until the day of our death, and how life is this beautiful, magical cycle of life. So yes, my one friend once said, when someone asked her, so what do you guys do in Moon School? And my friend was like, well, we're very concerned about what the moon is doing. So if I can put it in layman terms, so to speak, we are very concerned with the phases of the moon.
I love that. Awesome. So I think the first thing that's coming to me that I'd love you to talk more about is like the importance of cycles, because I think in this Western society that we find ourselves in, we are so disconnected from our cycles, the cycles of our bodies, the cycles of the moon, because obviously we're in this like hustle mentality. You've got to be productive as much as you can, no time for rest, no time for complaining, and we've completely disconnected from the cycles. So if you can just explain like what the cycles are, how it would be beneficial, I guess, to follow the cycles, whether it's the cycle of your menstruation or the cycles of the moon, and how that can benefit you in life all round.
So as you're talking about this, like I'm sitting in front of lights now as well, and I have a lot of clients, even family members who come up to me and ask me or tell me, listen, I can't sleep. How do I, do you have any tips? And what I've noticed actually in this last year in my practice is that a lot of people are asking me how to fix something in their life, as if there's one answer to it, right? And it's not, it's a cycle. Everything is a cycle, even your sleep, right? You were mentioning we're in this society of hustling all the time. You have to get shit done, you can't do this, you need to do that. And we even have lost touch with natural lighting. So in the evenings these days aren't really the evenings anymore. When you are without electricity, which some South Africans actually have the privilege, I'm going to dare and say that, the privilege to experience from time to time, you will notice that when the moon is shining, that there's actually a shadow. The moon can actually cast a shadow, but we don't see that because we have all these lights going on, and buildings have lights that run all through the night, where we've lost our connection to natural lighting, and especially in the evenings. You know, there is a beautiful cycle that needs to take place in the evenings as we settle down and things become a bit more quieter, and we switch off all the artificial lighting, switch on a candle or just a low light like those Himalayan salt lamps. They're great for that. And slow down your rhythm, your cycle, as you step into the evening, and embrace that. You know, there's a lot of surrendering that has to take place if someone struggles to fall asleep. You know, that's always a good thing to look into your life into. But what do we do? And I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. Like, you're on your phone, you're scrolling, you're Netflixing, maybe you're doing both. So yes, that's with regards to artificial lighting and a moon. Now, a lot of women, yes.
I just wanted to say before you move on, I love that you brought up the sleep cycle and artificial lighting and stuff, because during lockdown last year, we spent the 5 weeks at our farm, and there was literally no signal, no TV, no Wi-Fi, no nothing. And it was quite interesting to see how we all got into such a natural cycle of when the sun went down, we'd all go to bed, and when it came up, we'd all wake up. And we felt so refreshed, and like it was easy to sleep, and like there was so many benefits to that. And I just love that you brought that up, because it makes so much sense. Like, we are so disconnected from the cycles of even day and night because we have technology and artificial lighting, and it completely disconnects us from that cycle of sleep as well. So I love that you brought that up.
Yes, I mean, if you have to think about it, yes, there are certain cases that are clinical for why people can't fall asleep, right? But in actual fact, they're very little in our society. It's not so much that I'm not saying someone for a fact doesn't have insomnia, but that term gets thrown around a lot very loosely, when in fact it is just the inability to put down your phone and switch off the light and just slowly go into the night. That sounded a bit dark. But yes, and so with regards to the moon, I have clients who also ask me, you know, like, how can they sync their cycles to the moon? So when you start delving into feminine work and womb work and stuff, eventually you're going to stumble across syncing your cycle with the phases of the moon, right? So women will ask me a lot, you know, like, how do I do that? And again, there's no simple ritual or technique or tool that you're going to use and the next day, you know, you're fully synced with the moon. It's a cycle. It's a journey. And what I always say to them is, for the next 21 days, go out into the night. If you can't go out, and you know, you live in an apartment or a flat or whatever, just look outside your window. And for 5 minutes, just look at the night sky, regardless if you can see the moon or not, you know, just look at the night sky. And eventually, slowly but surely, you know, all my clients who've done that have successfully synced, and then they unsync again, you know, because again, it's a cycle, it's a rhythm, and you know, there is a bit of hype at the moment of syncing your cycle with the moon, you know, and I don't think it's necessary. Yes, it's a nice kind of, if you want to, like, calendar in a way, a nice kind of thing to pinpoint to, But if you're not syncing with the moon, that's okay too. Like your womb knows exactly when to release and when to let go, and when your period needs to come. You know, there's no right or wrong time to bleed.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
I have a very surface level question, just in case there are any, and I might have missed this. Sorry, I was just there late, so excuse me if it's
No worries.
But for the people that listen to our podcast that want to get more in touch with the cycles of the moon and to know more about the moon, I know we have a lot of people who even ask questions about how we are even connected to the moon. Can we maybe touch a little bit on what the different phases of the moon are for the people that don't know, and how it is connected to us, and how we can use those phases for ourselves and our life? Yeah. I mean, some people literally don't even know what the phases of the moon are and how they can relate to us. So
yes, thank you for that question. You know, it's you know, even when you do this work for so many years, those questions still come up very often, and it's good questions, you know. So with regards to the cycles of the moon, so I'll go into, you know, this is for men and women. When our moon becomes full, you can think about it as a circle, right? Things are coming full circle. Also, when it is full moon, the moon's light, you know, that is a reflection from the sun, of course, but it shines more brightly, right? It just makes sense. It's fuller. So if you think about that, you can think about it in a sense that what is there in your life that this time is shining a light on for you? You know, because we've all, and for people who are probably listening to this, the chances are good that they've started to, even if it's slowly and inconsistent, but they started to notice synchronicities come up in their lives and patterns that come up in their lives. And maybe they're seeing, you know, 1111 or numbers jumping out at them, you know. When it's full moon, it's a good time to shine light upon these synchronicities, these messages, these patterns that are coming up, right? And again, you don't need to understand it immediately. Just because it's full moon and the light is shining doesn't mean you now need to know, okay, that's what it means, now I can carry on with my life. No, it simply means that you are in a good spot, or it's a good time to just observe the fullness of this feeling or sensation or situation that is coming up for you at that moment in time. And then when it is new moon, when, you know, the moon is dark, you can't see the moon then, it is a good time to start new beginnings, you know, new beginnings, planting new seeds, new intentions, setting new intentions. There is even talk about planting actual physical seeds during new moon because of the pool of energy. And so when you plant that new seed into the ground, as the moon becomes fuller, the gravitational force helps that seed to also get pulled from the ground in a bit of a more powerful way as well. So that's with regards to full moon, new moon, and then, you know, your moons in between, they're also quite powerful. They usually represent change because the moon is changing, right? So if it is the moon leading up, the half moon leading up to the full moon, you are perhaps changing from things that are affecting you in the nucleus of your life. For example, things that are close to heart. New moon is usually, especially if you bleed around the new moon. This is now for women. If you bleed in and around the new moon, it usually signifies that it is an opportunity for you to understand and take a look at things that are close to home, close to your nucleus, close to things that affect you and your family, the people who you live with, and things like that. When you bleed closer to the full moon, it usually has to do with things that are a bit on the bigger scale, right? The fullness. So it could be that you are busy with a big project at work. Perhaps you have just moved into a new living situation where there are a lot more people involved. That definitely happened to me last year. Or you are, for example, a healer, or you have a practice, and you are, kind of then stepping into a role where you are empathically feeling into energies that are going on in the collective, whether that is your community, your workspace, or even, on a global sense. For example, and this is, really what happened in 2020 when the pandemic hit. All of my clients, literally all of them, including me, all switched to being full moon bleeders. And I feel, and this is just my opinion, that this had to do with the fact that a lot of these women are extremely empathic. And so what is menstruation if not to let go? If you are a very practical person and, you're more medically inclined, what, happens is that your uterine wall becomes thick, and then when you are menstruating, you let go of the uterine wall, right? That it's a process of letting go physically. So on a more energetic level that is happening is it's also a process of letting go. So there was a lot of things energetically and of course physically that happened in 2020 where women clearly, obviously, via their bodies, felt the need to let go, and to digest things that were happening in and around their lives. So I hope that answers it fully. Let me know if there are any other questions. I might be forgetting something, but
Completely. I think
yes, I think that's it.
awesome. Sorry, there's a lag. I was saying you answered it really well. Thank you. You did answer that perfectly. I was just like, there's so many people
Thank you.
really just don't know. And I think we always say with this day and age and where the world is moving and having more people that are more conscious and trying to, move on more of a spiritual path or journey, a lot of people start with the moon but literally don't know where to start. So I think you answered that question really well. It just helps people to know at what stage to set an intention, at what stage to let go. So it's a good place to be. Need to start some moon guys.
Yes, and what I always say is step one is just observe, right? And I remember and I understand, and I have so much empathy for this. When I started on my journey, with spirituality and energy work, I just wanted to know everything immediately. I wanted all the answers immediately, and because there's a fire that gets lit inside of you, right? And it's almost like you feel like this energy pushing you from behind forwards, and you, because of how society is structured, when you are pushed forward, you need to know the ins and outs, the structures, the who, the how, the when. And with the work that we do and with energy work spirituality, unfortunately, it just doesn't always happen that way. If you have a teacher and you're very fortunate to have someone who can lead you, not give you, but lead you to the answers, be very grateful for that, appreciate that in your life. But, like 10, 15 years ago, there weren't a lot of people out there teaching this stuff, and you had to just go with the flow, I guess. You were kind of like, it felt like you were stumbling in the dark, and then you see a light and you go towards it, but it's not really. And yeah, it's it can feel very unsteady at times, and you have this burning desire for knowledge. And I know it's frustrating when like someone comes to you and they're like, just observe, like that's not, I don't want that answer, but it really just, I know it sounds ridiculous, but just trust me, just observe. And you can start this by, the principles that we find in yoga, like even asana yoga, like when you are in shavasana, when you're lying on your back, and you go through all of your body parts and you just check in, you become aware of your pinky, your hand, your wrist. It's the same thing with energy work and spirituality. Just become aware of it. I actually spoke to someone yesterday, and this is a really nice way to explain the difference between observing and absorbing, especially when you are feeling triggered or whatever the case is. So when you become aware of a feeling, such as sadness or depression or anxiety, any of these type of feelings that make you feel uncomfortable, so uncomfortable that you don't want to feel this anymore, or you don't see how you're ever going to stop feeling this, a really nice exercise to do is to, like the moon, to see this beautiful ball in front of you. And it's as if you are holding this ball in front of you. And this ball represents this feeling, sensation, whatever. It can be anger as well. But I know when you are going through an anger fit, you're not going to be like, hey, let me hold my ball, like other things I'd play when you're angry. So, but if you do remember this, try and do it. So you hold the ball out in front of you, and again, just become aware of this ball that represents the sensation or the feeling that you are currently experiencing, whether that is sadness or anxiety or whatever. And then observe it as if you are just someone looking at something. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to judge it. You don't have to change it. All you do is you just observe and look at the ball, right? And then, thank you. I'm getting some coffee. So you hold this ball. Don't have to change it. You don't have to judge it. Doesn't have to be good. Doesn't have to be bad. Just observe it. Now, what you should avoid is to take this ball that represents this uncomfortable feeling and put it inside of you. Why would you put it inside of you? You won't, right? Obviously, that's the right answer. What you would want to do is you would want to take this ball. Sometimes it's difficult to say thank you and give gratitude to that ball. If you can and it feels okay, do it. Say thank you for showing up. I mean, this was an interesting experience at the very least on a soul level, even if it was uncomfortable. Take that ball and put it down. Or if you really want to, kick it away. But don't put it inside of you. Why? Why don't you want to put it inside of you? Because throughout this exercise, if you've, kind of envisioned it right now, you became aware of the fact that this feeling that you are experiencing is not you. It is just something that's appearing, right? And how blissful is it's a sense of, for me, it's deeper than bliss. It's a feeling of freedom. right? It's just like this, I am not my anxiety, you know? And that doesn't mean that immediately the comfortability goes away. But what happens from a neurological standpoint is that you become the observer and you immediately understand that I don't have to absorb this. I can just put it away, you know? But yes, like it's definitely easier said than done. And don't avoid going into a cycle of feeling shame or guilt if you feel anxious and you don't want to hold the damn ball. That's okay too. It's a process. Again, it's a journey, it's a process, step by step. I still struggle with it as well. So I don't know why I told that story, but observing versus absorbing, and the ball thing is just like, it's a game changer. Like, it changed things for me immediately. It was almost like I can take this breath of freedom.
I love that you use that example. And as you were speaking, literally, I was thinking it's such a clever thing, because a lot of times people define themselves by their emotions, and that's why we always say I am angry, I am sad, I am anxious, or whatever, where it's better to say I feel angry, I feel sad, because you separate the emotion from being part of your identity. So that's such a tool, like a visualization tool to bring that mentality in, but through obviously a visualization tool is to separate the emotion from yourself, visualize it, and know that it is there, but it's not part of you, and then letting it go. Like, I love that. I love that.
Yes, that's the sweet spot that you want to hit, that it is not you. When I was teaching in China, I would always correct the students when they said, I am sad. No, you're not. You are feeling sad. And even though they did it, like, I wasn't going to go into like this huge philosophical teaching about it, but to a point, language matters. And even that, I feel, on an energetic level, hopefully it plants just a little seed.
I also love that example. When you were talking about it, I was like, it's so simple, like you said, to take that normal knowledge, like we all know, this is not who I am, it's a feeling I'm feeling or that I'm experiencing at this point. But to actually be able to look at it in the example that you gave, I think makes it so much more clear to people who do find it difficult, because it's one thing to say, yes, I'm not angry, or my sadness is not who I am, but to be able to look at it from that point of view and go, if something is a bad ball of energy, would I put that inside my body? No. And that is what those feelings are. And it's so simple, like you said, but it's just such a great example to be able to use for everyone. I love that example.
Yes.
Good example. See, that's the reason you said, I don't know why I told the story. I'm like, because you needed to tell that story today on this episode.
Good. I'm glad. I love bullet points. You'll see, like, my diary is just bullet points, but bullet points, because I can, if you are astrologically inclined, I am a Pisces. I am an Enneagram 4, so I am very, watery, and I can like really go deep into something, and so I like to keep things as practical as possible, because I've learned throughout my journey doing energy work and spiritual, and doing spiritual work, is that something that is missing, I think, a lot of the times, is a nice foundation, a nice structural, practical exercise and discipline. And this is not something, that the people like me, like the airy fairy types, want to hear. We don't like that word, but there's so much medicine in that. So something that I always try to, when I have an aha moment or I read something and it makes so much sense on an energetic level, I always try and think, okay, so how do I implement that practically? So yes, this ball exercise is it's such a practical exercise. and keeping bullet points of conversations, because otherwise I don't know, I can just go off on a little tangent.
I'm like, you came, you said you love to talk. I'm like, you came to the right place, because that's us. So bullet points always distracted.
Yeah.
I wanted to dig a little bit deeper now. We've spoken about the phases and the cycle of the moon, but digging a little bit deeper into our own cycle, our menstruation cycle, because it was actually we had an event a few weeks ago, and one of the ladies brought up the fact that she schedules her appointments with her clients according to her cycle, because obviously when you're going through your menstruation cycle, you go through highs and lows, energetic moments, really lethargic ones. And I thought that was so interesting, because I've never thought about doing that before. And it's also outside of the work area, it's such a powerful thing that you can bring into every aspect of your life. So I wonder if you could just explain to the listeners a little bit more about the phases of our actual menstruation cycle and how we can plan our lives around it, so that we utilize each phase to like its maximum efficiency. That's a better, more feminine way of explaining that.
So I would love to. I actually have my notes on that right next to me. So how awesome is that? So I can, it's a very, very good way, a very, very good thing to structure, if you can, your life according to your own cycle, inside of your body as a menstruating woman. But again, there has to be a sense of give and take. There has to be a sense of flow. There has to be a sense of being connected to reality, because sometimes, and for a lot of women out there, it just isn't at the moment realistic to take 3 days off when they are bleeding, right? If you are fortunate enough to do that, then yes, do that, go for it. Don't feel guilty about it, enjoy it. But if you can't do it, just try and, even if you can, subtly adjust your life. Say, you know what, I'm going to take an hour for me today, even if it just begins with that. And even if it is just you sitting on your bed for an hour, not knowing what the hell to do, baby steps, right? So, okay, we start off with the menstrual, when the menstrual cycle starts. So that is usually between day 1 and day 5. So that is when, we're shedding our uterine lining and we start bleeding. Now, there are a few hormones I can name here, which I'm not going to do, because then it's going to get a little bit too technical. But there are a lot of hormones in play here, that have to do with, they were building the lining of your uterine wall. And now and actually your pituitary gland, which also is, very much linked to your third eye and your crown chakra, is the one that actually, this was fascinating to me, is the one that actually sends the message to your ovaries and to your womb to start contracting. It's magnificent. Like I was just, it was, for me, it made a lot of sense. Then, of course, from an energetic point of view, the moon can influence that when you engage that site, Anyway, so, it sends it to the ovaries to get ready to shed the uterine lining, right? So this is then a very good time, because of everything that your hormones are doing. It's a good time to really take a look at your intuition, to dive into your intuition, to trust your intuition, to allow your intuition to open up. And it's also a really good time for reflection. So a few points that I actually wrote down here is the words reflection, to analyze. If you are in the workspace, it's a good time then to do reports and performance reviews. And then on a physical side, it's perhaps good to do like a chill workout, like a yoga, or go for a walk, something that's not, where you're not running like a 10-mile marathon, might not be the best thing for your body at that time. Your body wants to be nurtured at this time. Just take it a bit slower. And this phase, the day 1 to 5, is also known as the winter phase. So what do we do in winter? We go into a bit of a hibernation. So again, following up with cycles, take your example from nature itself. When you are in your winter phase, allow yourself to isolate a little bit, and to tap into your intuition. This is an excellent time for meditation because your root chakra is obviously opened up. You're bleeding and basically giving back to the earth what no longer serves your body, your uterus, your womb space. And your crown chakra is also open. Your pituitary gland is like, booming off all kinds of stuff. So you are literally this beautiful staff that is now connected and opened up through your crown chakra and your root chakra, right? It's you are in a good space for doing intuitive work, and meditation. So then after that, you go into your follicular phase. Yes, that's how you pronounce it. That is from day 6 to 14, usually, give or take. And this is then known as your spring phase. They call it being the creative superstar, right? Your vaginal discharge can start to increase as you're leading up to ovulation. Your testosterone rises, so your libido rises, moving, into the phase of ovulation, and your estrogen is building up to get to that highest point again. So this is a great time for new things, research, project planning, and from a physical level, you can really now kind of like push your body at this stage. This is your most productive stage, good for brainstorming, creating masterminds, high energy output, because of this estrogen crest that is happening. Then after that, of course, is ovulation, which lasts about 2 days, 2 to 3 days. So this is day 15 to 17. And this is a beautiful stage, right? And it can go either way. It can go the way where you feel amazing and you want to get out there and you want to socialize, because from an evolutionary standpoint, this is when women are most fertile, right? Or you can get a bit irritated and you don't want to deal with people right now. And when that happens, it usually indicates that you were too busy during your spring phase, right? So again, balance. Yes, it's a great time to be super busy and, to be super productive, but you can also overdo it. That when you get to ovulation, day 15 to 17, it's too much, right? And you need to push back again. So this is the stage of the great communicator. If you have things like lives or you need to give a speech or something like that, this is great because your charming abilities are like on point at that time. Your progesterone increases for the implementation of the egg if you decide to procreate during that time. Your communication and verbal skills are at its highest. Teamwork, networking, collaboration, negotiation. If you need to negotiate for a paycheck rise, then is the best time to do it. Then after that is the last phase, which is known as the autumn phase. So ovulation will be your summer phase, right? So the last one is known as your autumn phase. They also call it the power phase. And that is the longest one. This one is around 10 days. So day 18 to 28. Yeah, so you've worked up to this beautiful crest for ovulation. And now after ovulation, everything is coming down with regards to your hormones, and you're getting ready again to release that uterine lining. It's a great time to be assertive. Usually people call this PMS. And it can mean provide me space, that's been said. But it can also mean that your level of seeing through the bullshit, that veil is a bit thinner, and you become a bit more assertive. And if you understand and you have techniques to express these uncomfortable feelings that are coming up, you can do that ball technique. This will obviously be a great time to do the ball technique, but also to express yourself through creativity. This is a great time to be creative as well. Spring and autumn. Why? Because spring and autumn both, if you look at it seasonally, what do? They bring on change. So spring and autumn, both of those seasons are great for creativity. So assertiveness, problem solving. Again, start to do a little bit of a more chilled exercise closer towards day 28, like yoga or walking. And then even accounting. I mean, this doesn't, to me, it didn't make sense. I was like, I don't want to do freaking accounting when I'm PMSing, but it was actually better. It was actually better. I was like, because it was something that wasn't very emotional and I could get it done. And I think the reason for that is because what is happening within your body with your hormones, and especially what's happening in your womb, is things are building up and doing what? Coming full circle, right? So it's a great time to complete something for the month so that you can go into that phase where you release what no longer serves you, release the stress of the month when you start your period, and just review and relax and take things easy.
I love that.
That was such a beautiful breakdown.
Yeah.
Really, I love that.
I think it's so interesting, and it's so sad that we've lost this connection with our cycles in this modern day and age, because it's so important, and it helps you to be more productive in your life if you kind of sync with your cycles, because you're resting when your body needs to rest, and you're being creative when your body's ready to be creative, and you're hitting full throttle when you've got that peak of energy, and then you're coming back down again. It just makes so much sense for everything in life, whether it's in your work, in your life, in your social environments, whatever it may be. So I absolutely love that. And I think it's also just so important to remind our listeners, because I mean, not everyone still has their period. Maybe they're on contraceptives, maybe they've already gone through menopause. That if you can't sync with your cycles, that's when the phases of the moon can become such because you can use that as your guideline to follow these phases, because our cycle's 28 days, the cycle of the moon is also 28 days. So if you're listening,
exactly,
I don't have my period, how can I actually align to these? You can use the moon.
Yes, Roxy, that is such a good point. This is then when that moon really comes into play, where you can really harness that. That's such a brilliant way of approaching it then, because if you need to be on the pill or on some other contraceptive, or you no longer bleed, or you've had a hysterectomy, or you are now menopausal, that doesn't mean you can't still connect to all of these beautiful magical things, and even within that, and this is something that I also love, even in that, there's also a cycle that's taking place, right? So when you are a little girl, you are doing your child stuff, right? And then when you start bleeding, you step into maidenhood, right? You step into your spring phase. You are blossoming. And there's this beautiful saying that I don't know who said it. I think it's like one of those anonymous or Chinese proverbs type of things. But there's this beautiful saying that says, when you start bleeding, you meet your power. When you bleed, you work with your power. When you stop bleeding, you become your power. So even if you aren't bleeding anymore and you're not menstruating anymore, you are now stepping into the role of the wisdom keeper, of becoming that power, right? And if you feel like, oh my God, like I've lost the opportunity to go through these cycles with my period, you are now in a divine position to just become it, you know? Your body is ready for that. Even if you think your mind isn't, like I haven't done all the work, I should still do a few courses and workshops or whatever the case is, your body is ready. Your body is ready to become that divine conduit for wisdom, right? Because you are stepping into your crone phase, your wisdom keeper phase. So starting with the maiden, then after the maiden, you step into a mothering role or a leadership role, a creatress role, I should rather say. I think actually, you know, we can say it's a mother or creatress role. So you'll start to notice this when your Saturn is returning, which is around like your 30th birthday. If anyone is listening and they're going through that right now, I'm sending you a lot of love and light. And you'll know, like if I'm talking to you. So when you hit that phase in your life, you will start to notice that you are now stepping into a different role within your life, with perhaps in your partnership, with your community, with your family, with your workspace, with your friends. You're stepping into a bit of a mothering role or a creatress role. You know, if you become, this is also a time when you can become, you know, like a physical mother, and have a child and a baby, or you know, you are giving birth to a business or a project, or you're doing both of those things, you know. So this is known as the summer phase, you know. Then after that, you go into your perimenopause phase or your autumn phase. This is known as your enchantress phase, your wild woman phase. And it's also known as, excuse my language, it's also known as the I don't give a fuck anymore phase, right? This is when you'll see women go through this is when you'll see women go through a phase of what can happen is an increase in substance abuse, right? Which again, we should handle with care and gentleness and compassion. You know, it's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it just is what it is, you know. They can go through that, you know, because they don't understand what's happening, because what is in fact happening is that your youth is dying down. You are transitioning from being youthful, and in our society, being youthful is the high prize as a woman, you know. And we can say this until, you know, the cows come home, that, you know, your worth is not direct, you know, a reflection of your beauty, your youthfulness, or even the amount of money that you have. And although we know this mentally, we are still, sorry, that's my dog. We are still, we still have all these programs in our DNA. We literally have DNA markers of, you know, a trauma, that has happened in our lives. So although we can know this on a mental level, we might not have integrated it yet energetically and spiritually. And again, that's okay too, don't now go on a spiral of guilt, shame, because you're not doing that either. But so yes, this is when you start to notice aging. And this is when you start, where you have to separate or say goodbye to the maiden, and any type of, sorry, I have an alarm that's going off.
No problem.
Okay, I'm back. So this is when you have to, you have to say goodbye to that maiden. And if perhaps you feel that, oh my word, I haven't done enough, or I haven't been wild enough, this is when that will come out, right? And hopefully, you will go through that phase, that menopause phase and that autumn phase, and come out as a wild, raw, authentic woman. And hopefully by then you won't give a fuck anymore, and your hair will be wild and unkempt and your feet dirty or whatever. But if that is not in your design or your personality, that's fine too. But yes, so that's the enchantress phase, the autumn phase. And then you go into the ultimate phase, which is the wisdom keeper. This is menopause and postmenopausal. This is when, so we were talking about when you are bleeding, your crown chakra and your root chakra is opened. When you are pregnant, the same thing happens. And of course, when you give birth, the same thing happens. And then when you are after menopause and you step into your wisdom keeper phase, this is also then what starts to happen, right? So it's that complete download of being that power within your body. So you'll see women becoming the wisdom keepers in their communities, in their families, stepping into this, matriarchal role within their lives. So yes, I love that. I love that we are currently in some or other phase in our life. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting how we literally are always going through phases and cycles, and another phase, another cycle. I mean, especially when you embark on like a self-development, improvement, spiritual journey, whatever you want to call it, you're constantly going through cycles of death and rebirth, like not on a physical level, but on an energetic and an emotional and a spiritual level, because you're always figuring out new things, changing perspective, changing your outlook, and that creates a new version of yourself. So there's always this constant cycle of even the maiden, the mother, the crone, whatever it may be, the full moon, the new moon. So it's been so interesting just to like dig deeper into all of these cycles, because I think it just opens people's eyes to the importance of knowing about the cycles, understanding the cycles, and being where you are so that you can use that cycle to its like best, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, I love that too. It's my jam. I can talk hours and hours.
Sorry, I'm like, I literally, every time it's me, always with the lag. Whenever there's a lag, I always speak over the guest. But everything you said has been so informative. And I think, like you say, you can speak for hours and hours and hours. It's probably just scratching the surface level. But if you are listening to this episode today, I think it's super important when we were talking earlier about the phases of the menstrual cycle. A lot of women probably don't even know. I know this is stuff that they taught in biology at school, but how many people, as you get older, still remember what phases of your cycle are, unless you are trying to have a baby around ovulation? A lot of people don't know what phase of each of their cycles lasts however many days, or what phase that they're in. So if you're having your period, it's super important to be in touch with that. And if you're not having your period, to still know what happens at which point of your cycle, so that, like we said today, you can try to sync with the moon rather, but to know what happens during those periods so you can plan. You know when to be intentional, you know when to let go, you know when to do all of these things. So that's just one thing that crossed my mind when we were talking about it. I was like, I know people personally who will have no idea when they ovulate, how long the phase is after ovulation. So take that into account with your cycle and start to take notes, because everyone's cycle will be different.
Yes, that is so important. And also, I think for, the future female generation that's coming as well, like for them to understand this as well, for them to not be told that it's a burden to bleed. It's not. It's such a gift. It's such a privilege that we have to bleed. I mean, we literally every month get to shed layers and say, hey, I don't want to deal with you anymore. Bye. Like, you can do that every month. You can let something go, So to get women and young girls excited about it, obviously respecting their privacy and stuff, because I know some women, because they didn't have a great experience when they started bleeding, they want to give this great celebration to their daughters, which is fine if the daughter wants it, because we also don't want to go the other way and then traumatize the poor child. And there's like this big celebration, and they just actually want to have like an intimate thing with their mother, So again, be conscious, stay mindful. But I think it's so important to get this generation that's coming up now. I mean, they're really, really quite intuitive. The what do they call it? The Generation Z, Zoomers. So they're very, very intuitive. And I think, if you are fortunate enough to know these things or have now bumped into this knowledge, to really try and create a space where it can be just a little bit easier for the next generation of women.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because it is like a lot of people have been taught to feel shame around their bleed, and that it's not something you talk about, or it's embarrassing, or it's dirty, or it's gross, or whatever it is. And I think that's one of the main reasons why a lot of us have been so disconnected from our cycle, because it's kind of something that we just wish didn't happen, instead of seeing the beauty and seeing the divine in the cycle and celebrating it and being excited about it and connecting with it. So this has been super, super enlightening for both of us, and I'm sure everyone that's listening. And like we said, we could probably chat to you for hours.
Yeah.
Hours. So we'll probably have to have you back on again. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all of this knowledge, because I really do feel like the people who have listened to this have taken at least one thing away, if not millions, that they can start to implement.
I hope so.
So thank you.
I hope so. Maybe next time we can talk about the about the connection between having painful periods and the connection between that and having perhaps an unconscious link to the period being something disgusting or shameful. Because those things take root in the pain body.
Yeah,
100%. And I think that will be a topic that also a lot of people want to listen to. So if you guys are listening to this episode, that's your teaser for one that could possibly lead to come. That I know. But thank you so much for coming today. It was so lovely to, I always say meet you, but this is how you meet people these days.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so nice. Really, it has.
And we can't wait to have you on again.
Yes. Awesome, guys.
Yes, same here.
We will catch you in the next episode. If you love this one, give us some feedback, please. We love to see your feedback, but we'll see you soon.
See you later. Bye.